All right, let's get right into it. Picture this. Across North America, you've got over 140,000 miles of railway tracks. It's this massive industrial backbone, really built for the 20th century. But right now, it's quietly going through one of the biggest technological upgrades of our time. We're talking about the birth of something called the railway internet.
And that, right there, is the massive question at the heart of this whole thing. How in the world do you take a system of steel and signals that's, 100 years old and drag it kicking and screaming into the digital age? The scale of this is it's immense. And the solution has to be just as big.
And I mean, the difference between the old way and the new way it's night and day. On the left, you've got the old system. It's a total patchwork of old analog gear, signals you can't always count on, and just a tiny trickle of data. But on the right, that's the future. A single, powerful, high-bandwidth railway internet. We're talking something strong enough to run fully automated operations. This is not just a little upgrade. It's a completely different way of thinking.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. This change, it isn't optional. It's not like the railroads are just deciding to modernize on their own time. No, the entire industry, through its main governing body, has mandated a single unified technology for everybody. This is a top-down revolution.
So, what is this magic technology they've mandated? Well, at its core, it's a wireless standard called IEEE 802.16. Don't worry about the name, everyone just calls it .16 for short. The Association of American Railroads, the AAR, they've picked this to be the technical backbone for the entire railway internet. And guess what? There's one company that basically has a monopoly on it, Ondas Networks.
So why this one? Why .16? Well, it perfectly solves the really weird, unique problems you only find on a railroad. First, it lets trains talk directly to each other, no cell tower needed. That is absolutely critical for split-second safety decisions. Second, it's super smart. It can hop between different radio frequencies to always find the cleanest signal. And third, and this is so cool, it's built to handle the Doppler effect, so it keeps a rock-solid connection even when a train is just flying down the tracks.
Of course, a mission this huge needs an almost unbelievable amount of money. I mean, you can't rebuild the digital guts of an entire continent on a shoestring budget, right? This called for a massive financial bazooka to basically remove the financial risk from the whole project right from the start.
And there's the number, $855 million. That's the strategic war chest that Ondas raised. And the goal here wasn't just to get by. It was to pre-fund the entire multi-year rollout, basically insulating the company from any market craziness while it gets this massive job done.
And this table, wow, it just shows how radical that financial transformation really was. Look at the cash. It goes from around $30 million to over $840 million. And just as important, look at the debt, from almost $45 million down to zero. Gone. This move completely rewrote the company's financial DNA. It wiped out both the risk of running out of money and the drag of paying interest.
Okay, so they've got the technology mandate locked down. They've secured a mountain of cash. So the next big question is, how do they actually make money? What's the plan to get from burning all this cash to actually generating it?
Well, here's the roadmap they've laid out. 2026 is what they're calling the breakout year for revenue, hitting over $100 million bucks. But notice this, they don't actually break even on a cash flow basis until 2028. And real serious profitability, that's projected for 2030. This is definitely a long-term play.
Let's just look at that growth on the top line. The projections here show revenue more than tripling between 2026 and 2030. What you're seeing is that classic S-curve of adoption, where you have slow growth at first, and then, boom, a massive acceleration as the technology just becomes standard across the whole industry.
But remember, revenue isn't the same thing as cash in the bank. This chart shows what's known as the J-curve. It basically means you have to spend a ton of money up front, that's the dip in the J, to build everything out before you can start raking in the cash. You can see that big cash burn in 2026, but then it swings way up into the positive as the network really comes online.
So how do they get to that positive cash flow? It all comes down to a really crucial shift in the business model. See, the first wave of money comes from selling hardware, the actual radios and towers. But the real prize, the long-term high-margin profit, comes from recurring revenue, things like software licenses and maintenance fees. This is the big move from being a hardware company to becoming more like a software utility.
And believe it or not, the company's vision is actually even bigger than just the railroad.
They see the railway internet as the foundation for something much, much larger, what they call a system of systems. So it's not just about connecting trains. It's about all the other critical infrastructure that runs right alongside the tracks.
This breaks down their grand plan perfectly. So step 1, you build that core railway network. But then step 2, you start adding layers on top of it. Think about it. All those thousands of radio towers you built for the trains, they can also host things like autonomous security drones and sensors for utility companies and oil pipelines. And that leads to step 3, the endgame, a single, unified network for both data and security, covering America's most critical industrial assets.
Okay, now let's be real. No project on this kind of scale comes without risks. So for this to be a credible look at the situation, we have to talk about the potential roadblocks that could really slow this whole journey down.
And the number one risk, honestly, can be summed up in just 2 words: railroad time. This industry is famous, or maybe infamous, for its slow, deliberate pace. Even with a mandate, getting these massive railroads to spend money and make decisions can be like watching glaciers move. A delay in adoption by the big guys is the single biggest threat to that financial timeline we just looked at.
And that brings us right back to the beginning, doesn't it? This quote from the source material just ties a perfect bow on the whole story. The biggest risk is railroad time, but the ultimate defense against that risk is that massive war chest of cash. That $855 million isn't just for building things, it's a hedge. It gives the company the stamina to simply outlast any delays, to endure the friction and see this revolution through to the very end. The question really isn't if this is going to happen, but just how long it will take to get there.